Daí, Borgochum na área, e comente abaixo se você prefere ganhar bem, mas morar abaixo de 10 metros de neve, ou se prefere uma vida mais humilde, mas morar num lugar tropical. Sabe por quê? Porque eu tô jogando agora Star Citizen. E no vídeo de hoje eu vou mostrar o replay da apresentação da CitizenCon, contando um pouco mais sobre como a Microtech foi construída. Então, antes da gente continuar, não esqueça de se inscrever e deixar aquele joinha maroto para fortalecer o canal. Beleza? Bora lá? Acho que agora vai começar microtecnicidades, que acho que eles vão dar uma boa detalhada com como foi feito o Microtech.
Hello everybody.
Aquele segundo cara ali de camiseta vermelha lembra muito um colega meu de trabalho.
A little bit more superficial than the previous talk you've just watched, but nevertheless we care very passionately for it. So I'm
Aí quando começa esses eventos começa a travar a live.
Director on Star Citizen.
I'm Michel. Hello again. Lead on the organics team.
Hi, I'm Nick. I'm the lead environment artist on the landing zone team.
And I'm Eddie. I'm the lead environment artist on the modular team.
Okay, so let's go through a quick overview of some topics we're going to cover. First, we want to talk a little bit about the team formation and why we're kind of set up in this way. Next, we'll talk a little bit about the visual development of the space stations, both the exterior and the interior, and some of the notes on the direction we're taking. Then we'll take a deep dive into the visual design of the new landing zone, New Babbage. And then right at the end, we'll explore some of the biomes that we're going to see on Microtech.
Bom, nessa palestra eles vão mostrar aí como é que a equipe foi montada, né, para desenvolver essa tarefa aí. Depois eles vão falar sobre as estações espaciais, sobre New Babbage, como ela foi concebida e também como o Microtech foi criado.
Okay, so first thing I want to talk about is the landing zone team. So obviously the focus of this team is focusing on, cityscapes, spaceports, hub areas of the landing zone, common elements, things like that. And that team is largely focused on kind of like maintaining or implementing the complexity of what these landing zones are. Next we got the modular team. So the focus of this
Eles têm time específico só para as landing zones, né?
Sure that in between landing zones there's locations to go to. So things like space stations, ground locations, space locations, things like that. So
Eles têm time específico só para estações modulares também.
Porque se você para pensar, realmente você tem esses dois grandes objetos, né, grandes tópicos de um planeta, que é a parte da landing zone, onde você acaba tendo essa coisa mais manual do artista, né? E você tem a parte modular, onde já entra uma coisa mais procedural, né?
Sim.
Que são as estações espaciais, os outposts, esse tipo de coisa que a gente já está habituado em Hurston, por exemplo.
Aí eles têm um time específico só para a criação das luas também, ó. Luas, cavernas, biomas também, eu acho.
A little look at our internal formation, and hopefully give you a little bit of confidence in how we can kind of move forward and work on a few different things in parallel. Okay. So let's start real quick with the modular team. Okay.
Nós vamos falar sobre os times de criação modular, ó.
Game for some time. We were happy, but they had a fundamental problem. Essentially, we needed to diversify the visual design of them. I don't know if you remember these guys. This is a clay render of one of the originals, and it didn't really matter how we kind of changed it. It still kind of looked the same. So Chris was very passionate with me. He said, "Hey, I want space stations in Star Citizen to be diverse, beautiful, vast. So what we did was we sat down with the concept team and we had a very intense period of visual development to try and generate ideas of what the next steps of space stations could feel like. So here you can see an example sheet.
Ó, ele tá falando sobre as versões, né, das estações espaciais.
Fairly intensive work. This is like an idea board that we put in front of Chris. So even from quite small thumbnail images, you can kind of see how diverse some of the ideas could feel. And we wanted designs to feel iconic and fairly recognizable. And then for those of you with really good eyesight, maybe you can recognize some of the categories we're putting them in. And the idea is we want the core space station to design to be primary, and then what we do is we use additional elements to help define the theme of that space station. Okay, let's take a little sneak peek at some of the archetypes which we want to explore. So, this is an early example of a cargo.
Olha que legal, ó. A ideia de uma estação de carga.
Ah, nossa. Isso tá pra ano que vem, se não falha a memória no roadmap.
We deliberately didn't surface anything. We wanted to almost give that aesthetic of an old scratch-built model from like ILM or something, just to validate the shape and form without getting into the details. So this is like a slightly larger, more developed infrastructure, and you can see like the cargo containers are now kind of formatted into larger units. And that tiny little hub area is in
Olha, outra ideia legal.
O setor de cargas vai ficar, na verdade, naqueles containers ali, né?
And then we also tried a vertical design. Ultimately, this had too many problems.
Olha que maneiro esse.
Vai ficar legal, hein? Será que vai ser dinâmico? Se a estação tiver com tanto de carga, vai aumentando, vai diminuindo aquele exterior ali?
Pô, ia ser legal, né?
And ultimately, we're looking for an idea where the hub was quite small and insignificant compared to the cargo.
Eu achei isso aí mais legal, mais organizado.
That's a cargo station, you know. Continued design exploration. This time, we're kind of taking cues from Port Olisar, because Port Olisar should be a port station, right?
É muito inspirado em Port Olisar, né?
Sim, porque ele comentou ali, né, que Port Olisar era para ser uma estação de... Era para ser um porto mesmo, né?
Sim, sim.
So we like the idea of something exposed. So
as refinarias, que legal, ó.
Common elements from the other stations.
Nossa.
But we like the idea that the protective layers of other stations have been exposed, so you just see the inner workings. And we also like the idea of something skeletal, lots of negative shapes. And also you can see like a range of arrays of components. And this can also be used to kind of describe, you know, expanding out the scale of operation. So if you see something with like large quantities of arrays, it kind of implies like it's a bit more of an established operation.
Ele está comentando que isso daí seria tipo uma estação escalável, né? Que tu pode ir aumentando.
Olha ela crescendo.
Caraca.
Será que isso daí vai ser linkado diretamente com o sistema de economia dinâmica? Se, por exemplo, começar a ter uma exploração muito forte em um certo planeta, será que aquela estação vai aumentar junto com os jogadores? Ou por causa dos jogadores?
Ele está mostrando, ó, tem uma rest stop, não, uma rest stop, então é um ponto para você descansar, mas percebe que ele está adicionando módulos de carga e de refinaria a ela, né?
Sim.
Então eles vão poder aumentar a escala puramente adicionando módulos, né, ao que já existe.
Essa estação, achei ela muito legal, cara.
Pô, linda.
And even from this clay render, we felt, you know, quite confident about the compositions that we'd expect to have. And then I just loved that strut leading out, really leading out from the main core, and was really thinking about what that experience would be if we landed on there. You know, what that would feel like, and then eventually we want physical transit elevators bringing us into the core. So just to repeat this slide again, hopefully you can kind of see what we're doing. We're not necessarily, you know, building unique space stations for each one, but we're trying to invest into what our core space station visual style is. And then when we come to do like refineries or cargo depots, It's a bit more of a
Interessante a ideia dele.
Sim, sim.
Ele vai ter um design central, né, um formato principal, e ele vai adicionar módulos, né, basicamente a esse design, e você vai ter uma variedade muito grande a partir dessa mecânica.
Okay, so let's move on from the exteriors and then let's move on to the interiors.
Agora eles vão começar a falar sobre os interiores das estações.
So I guess the problem with the interiors was really the same as with the exteriors. They weren't really big enough and they weren't really varied enough. So especially now the larger exteriors have come into the game, the current interior.
Eles estão comentando que a dificuldade de criar o interior das estações é a mesma de criar o exterior, né? Que é criar esse senso de escala e de variedade.
We wanted to make the stations flow and the layout feel generally more open rather than separate areas into distinct segments with smaller doorways and doors. So I'm going to be talking through just some of the various components we improved and added to achieve the new interiors, and then I'm also just going to give a brief breakdown of some of the modular workflows and tools. So let's start with hubs. The hubs are kind of the nexus of the stations. We made them bigger. We gave them a more spacious and kind of a grander atmosphere to a scale intended to kind of match.
O interior das estações vai aumentar muito a escala deles, meu.
We've also added some
Vai ter até praça de alimentação. Vai ficar muito legal.
And then in addition to that, we just take a quick look at what we've done to the shops. The shops were kind of an important change. Previously, all our shops were kind of gated behind doors. So we changed them to all be open-fronted.
Interessante a ideia dele.
Agora as lojas vão ser abertas, né?
It also provides what we call curb appeal a lot more, opening up the fronts entices people in, and it's something you see.
O visual fica bem mais legal, né? Mais convidativo, né?
Go to a shopping center or a mall. Kind of softens the transition between the inside and the outside. Next, we're going to have a look at the mom and pop shops. Now, the mom and pop shops are kind of a new type of station we haven't seen, type of shop that we haven't seen in stations before. We've kind of made these independently owned rather than tied to a specific brand or a specific corporation, hence the mom and pop. And as they are
interessante.
we've kind of established
É tipo comércio local, né?
Sim.
Não é uma empresa grande, né? Não está associada a nenhuma grande marca. Pô, irada essa ideia.
É o que a gente já tem hoje, por exemplo, em porte aliçário, né? A gente pode comprar qualquer arma, qualquer item de qualquer fabricante, né? E acho que Center Mass, acho que
não,
é só
mas ali em porte aliçário a gente tem essas lojas com essas marcas, né, definidas. Ele tá querendo fazer como se fosse, sei lá, a lojinha do seu Zé, entendeu? Que não tem marca, não tem nome nenhum.
E vendendo de tudo um pouco.
É, e vender de tudo um pouco.
They're all open fronted in the same way all the shops now are.
As lojas de comida,
and also they are also independent and kind of non-corporate for kind of a friendly.
Aí, ó, novamente a gente tá falando, né, que é independente, né, não é de marca grande.
So that when the layout tool does its thing, positions within layouts will vary between generations. I've skipped a slide there, but that doesn't matter. The food court itself. So the food court itself is another new space. We knew we wanted a larger secondary space other than the hubs that's kind of specific to rest stops. So we developed the food court.
As rest stops vão ter agora a praça de alimentação. Provavelmente, por enquanto, sem nenhuma interação, né?
Another thing we've kind of developed as well is the idea of layouts. Overlays. Overlays. What overlays do is essentially they provide the same base architecture with a simple swap of an overlay. We can kind of completely change the atmosphere of a space with a simple overlay swap. And here's another shot of sort of the upper deck of the food court.
Cara, imagina você ter que parar nessas estações só porque o estômago do personagem tá roncando. Deixa eu parar aqui pra pegar um miojo rapidinho.
Cara, essa mecânica de alimentação eles têm que tomar, eles têm que ser muito cuidadosos, cara, em como eles vão montar, Porque se eles aumentarem muito a frequência do personagem ter que parar,
Vai ficar
mata,
chato, né?
mata toda a gameplay, cara.
Uhum.
Eu falo isso porque eu falo isso porque eu joguei por muito tempo o Rust. E eu peguei desde as versões pré-alpha e alpha, cara, e antigamente tu tinha que realmente parar pra comer, e só que as primeiras versões tu tinha que parar muito, cara, e tipo,
Sei.
matava todo o teu gameplay.
Enche o saco, né?
Eles demoraram um certo tempo pra achar um balanceamento nisso daí. Hoje em dia eu acho que tu demora muito tempo pra ter que se alimentar, então eu acho que eles passaram um pouco disso daí. Mas a ideia, cara, ela é muito boa, mas tem que ser bem balanceada.
Tem que tomar cuidado pra não ser uma coisa muito chata. Especialmente agora que a gente tá vendo que as punições são severas, né?
Sim.
Pelo visto. Então não pode ser uma coisa que vai encher o seu saco e praticamente fazer você parar de jogar pra poder atender isso.
Eles estavam comentando ali sobre o deck o view deck, né? Pra olhar pra rua. Olha só que animal, cara. O personagem tomou um dano ali. Tocou no outro ali e já tomou um cascudo.
So just to give you a brief breakdown of how the modular team works, because it works in a much different way than maybe a traditional level is made. Instead of building a layout by hand, we kind of build all the components and use the procedural tools to generate many different layouts rather than hand building individual ones. So here's a library of rooms that are kind of unique.
Mais um exemplo de automação.
Exatamente.
Para facilitar o trabalho deles.
Ao invés de eles criarem cada uma das partes manualmente, eles vão criar os componentes e vão deixar a ferramenta de geração procedural fazer o resto do trabalho.
Eles estão criando a peça do Lego, agora como vai ser montada é o programa que vai decidir.
Sim. Ah, que legal ali os banners, ó. A galera tem falado muito, cara, nas lives que seria bem legal, tipo, empresas reais estarem nos banners, né? Tipo, imagina tu tá chegando numa estação e tem um banner de uma Coca-Cola da vida numa praça de alimentação.
Se isso patrocinar o jogo
não
e
de
evitar
graça,
que a gente pague mensalidade, por exemplo, por mim tá ótimo.
Which is the prettiest slide in this presentation, this art presentation. But it's kind of a node-based thing that we use. A designer or an artist can snap these nodes together and say, I want this general flow for a station. And then we've got a video of basically that graph. This is the tool doing its thing with that graph, and you can see it's testing connection points. It's finding successful ones, and then it's moving.
Olha que maneiro ela fazendo.
Ela tá tentando construir ali e fazer as conexões, ó.
And once you have a successful layout, really, all that remains is for an artist or a designer to
Que
go into that
legal,
layout,
cara.
have a look at it and decide whether they like
Então
it or not.
o artista ele dá um parâmetro, né? Eu quero que seja mais ou menos assim, e o programa ele vai tentar atender o pedido dele, né?
Sim.
Porra, incrível.
So the modular team works in this way because obviously it's a much easier way to create hundreds of different locations.
Cara, a geração procedural ela é uma ferramenta assim, ó, extremamente poderosa, cara, mas tem que saber usar, cara.
Cara, a gente tem exemplos de jogos que já usaram, mas acabaram ficando muito maçantes, né?
É porque são games que, tipo, não tem gameplay, né? O problema disso é o gameplay, cara. Ele que dá a densidade no jogo, cara. Não é a geração procedural.
Awesome. Thanks, Eddie. That's pretty cool, right? Okay. So let's move on to the next team. So talk about the Lanzo team. So
Agora nós vamos falar de New Babbage.
There's a few key factors that we wanted to focus on. So first, it's going to be the new art style, and as I
Eles vão falar sobre como foram construídas as cidades que ficam ao fundo, ó, para os jogadores poderem explorar.
Utilitarian building set, but because this is Microtech, it's Microtech's kind of like home location. We knew we needed to invest our time.
Vamos ver como é que vai ser isso, né? Porque realmente é complicado você permitir que os jogadores possam explorar terrenos urbanos, né?
Cara, acho que vai acontecer que ele só vai ter um monte de prédio sólido vazio que não vai poder entrar. Que nem a gente faz, por exemplo, em Levski, por exemplo, que a gente pousa em qualquer lugar e pode andar no exterior da estação.
For the new art style, as I said, if you look at Lowville, we wanted something that felt old.
Eu vou te dizer, cara, eu gosto muito de Arquicorp, acho ela muito bonita, dá aquela sensação de Blade Runner, mas eu acho Lorville mais bonito. Não sei se é a paleta de cores ou o que é, mas eu acho Lorville mais bonito.
Cara, eu gosto das duas, mas o meu PC não gosta de nenhuma, porque ele mal tá aguentando. Tem que trocar de máquina pra poder. Especialmente Arquicorp.
Arquicorp tá complicado.
Odeia.
Ontem eu cheguei lá, tava 15 FPS, meu bar, tava complicado.
It's kind of got a rich history, as you're going around, you see architecture from different periods, much like if you walk around Manchester. You'll see architecture from different time periods, and it kind of gives you a type of layer and a type of depth to the game. That's ultimately.
Nossa, a gente vai fazer uma pesquisa bem grande em relação à arquitetura, ó.
So you can see here on the timeline, this is where the high tech is.
Microtech é uma empresa totalmente diferente da Hurston, por exemplo, né? A Lore fala que eles são especializados em eletrônicos, né, microchips. Então, com certeza eles queriam dar um ar mais moderno, limpo, high-tech, né, para Microtech. Diferente da sujeira que é Hurston, por exemplo, né, uma cidade muito mais industrial, né.
Sim.
Okay, so this was the first kind of like concept we achieved on where
Eu me lembro dessa imagem.
Final direction of what you can see in game right now. Previously, we'd gone through quite a few iterations.
Aquele prédio ali no centro ali é muito bonito, cara.
Babbage is kind of described as having like these beautiful domes of where the city's kind of inside. We tried many ideas of trying to visually describe what a city inside a dome looks like, but ultimately.
Se tu consegue ver ali bem embaixo, tem vários veículos andando na superfície do planeta.
Tô vendo. Legal. Aquele prédio ali principal, ele foi inspirado num arranha-céu que tem na China, cara.
Eu já ia comentar que eu já vi aquele prédio em algum lugar.
Né? Quem souber aí no chat do que eu tô falando. Não lembro qual é o nome.
Que ele é vazado no meio, né?
Que tem um quadrado no meio dele.
Esse sistema de trânsito ele vai permitir que a equipe consiga criar mais cidades do que eram previstas no game, né? Então eu me lembro que, se eu não me engano, a Arquicorp ia ter só a área 18 e no máximo acho que outra área 17. E agora quando a gente chega ali, cara, acho que tem umas 5 ou 6 cidades no game já.
As you can see here, all of these open areas, we wanted that open feel. So if we wanted the hub, for the player to get out the hub and then kind of traverse on the train straight away, we're trying really hard to make that a possibility. Okay, so this was a video we pretty much took the concept mesh, got it in game as soon as we possibly can. So the aim here is to replicate the concept one-to-one, and then you start to get a sense of scale of how it's feeling.
Será que eles vão colocar a mecânica de neve? Do cara, tipo, mexer na neve como se mexesse na areia, assim, só que mais fundo?
Caraca, imagina, né?
Ia ser animal, cara. Não sei se eles vão conseguir fazer isso, mas é assim, né? Dá mais uns 10 anos pra eles fazem.
So we're replicating that in 3D from the concept and then iterating from there. This video shows the advancement of the layout and how we increased the scale from concept was quite narrow and we broadened it out, and it's really important obviously to play it and see how it feels flying around, walking around, and this was our first time where we felt really happy with the sense of scale of the city. So it's starting to feel like a real.
Agora, será que a gente vai realmente poder voar desse jeito? Ou vai ter o negócio lá do controle de tráfego enchendo o saco?
Pelo que eles falaram, eles vão liberar o voo.
So this is new Babbage pretty much in its final form. And in addition to
Cara,
Cara,
tá
a cidade
muito
tá
legal.
gigante, meu.
Olha isso, cara.
Districts further out, and then having these kind of little outposts.
Eles têm que dar uma reformulada depois do lore, viu, cara, que eu achei ela
To make
pequenininha.
it feel like the city's not just on its own, but
Aham.
you know, it's embedded into the.
Ela chegou a
the local
crescer, né?
landscape, and there's
Não sei se você
more,
reparou.
Like, man-made structures being
É, mas
A
foi pouca coisa,
Lorville,
né?
ela ganhou umas sessões, né?
So
Mas
Sim.
provavelmente eles vão voltar lá pra
pra
melhorar, né?
In-game shot. We have the transit loops that go from Spaceport into the city. We've got the domes, which was the central place to go for the players, and we've got our Aspire Grand signature building in the center, in the main downtown area. When we have the sprawl, and the open areas, as Ian's already mentioned.
Ah, aqui, ó, a galera tá comentando.
So we wanted to validate the design from above.
O prédio que eu falei que lembrou é o Shanghai World Financial Center.
And have the feeling that the city has
Tem quadrado no
expanded
meio.
over time,
Sim.
building out the major transit as it spreads,
Bah, a cidade tá gigante, meu.
and maintaining that kind of networked
Cara,
composition
tá,
of the
tá
city.
linda.
And it's growing
Tem
out
várias áreas
around
de
the bay as
trânsito
well,
ali. Será
gives it
que
that really
vão
nice,
ter, tipo, vários
skyline view.
respawns? Ou várias áreas de gameplay diferentes? Tipo, o centro seria, de repente, pro cara pegar as missões e... Vão ter, tipo,
So the transit tracks,
mission givers em
really
outros
ground
lugares?
it, making it a believable city.
É,
Makes it feel like
eu
it's
espero
this
que eles
hustling, bustling
centralizem,
city.
né?
People have places to go.
Ficaria mais
So
interessante.
we knew that these transit tracks that the players are actually going to take need to be dynamic, so they weren't just straight lines everywhere.
User in
They
your
kind of
channel
weave
timed out.
in between buildings and places and curve around like you see there. So let's talk about the architecture of the city itself. So we wanted to
legal,
put a
estilo
real
dos prédios.
emphasis on distinctive silhouettes of the buildings,
User entered your
compound
channel.
curves, material separation, and give it a nice elegant feel.
Bem
We
bonito.
wanted to make it distinctive from the utilitarian
Será que esses
style
prédios
like,
que tem zonas de
Gary
pouso,
T.
será que
Lorville,
eles vão ser
but not
interagíveis
push
ou
it
será que são
too,
só prédios
minimal, like the
vazios?
supermodernism style. So
Então,
it's kind of in between.
quando eles lançaram o
That's
ArcCorp,
what the
eles
high-tech
comentaram
style is.
sobre essa ideia de você
So with the
ter
skyline, we
landing
wanted to have more
zones
kind of
bem
negative
distribuídas
shapes,
ao redor da
negative space
cidade,
created
né?
with, like, structures and
Ao invés
Não
de tu
ficar
pousar
só
em-
no espaço-porto, sabe?
Ah, ao invés de pousar só lá no Spaceport, tu pode
So how did we
pousar
actually make it,
em outros
inventive?
prédios e pegar também o
So,
sistema de
é,
trânsito, talvez.
Aham.
To break it down,
Cara, é
what we
bem
did
mais
was we had these
interessante,
very
né? Do
thick,
que
Sim,
todo
concordo.
mundo indo pro mesmo
which
canto.
deliberately
Não, e
like
tu imagina
this, so
quando
we
o game
could-
ele estiver
we
mais
could
avançado,
embed that in
as zonas de
stone in
pouso
the
vão estar sempre
terrain
ocupadas.
and then add integration on top of that.
Quem
So
sabe
we could
você
have that at
possa
various
comprar
heights.
uma, né?
Sim,
Porque
tem isso.
entra a mecânica de hangar, né? Você vai poder comprar hangar nessas cidades, né?
Sim.
Esses hangares poderiam ser realmente uma landing zone no alto de um prédio, coisa do tipo, né?
Sim.
Research and development into with Houdini in getting the right variety and shape and scattering of these buildings. So these are the lower detail but higher frequency buildings, and they complement that base layering. So then we need to embed those main plates with these secondary plates, which again add more layering to the city and add the believability.
Porra, cara, tá muito
So
legal
here's
esse
a shot
jogo,
where
na
you can
moral.
see all these secondary plates added
Tô me
in around
repetindo,
the
mas
main ones,
nossa.
which add like a really nice natural layering to the city, and they break up that kind of mega
De repente,
structure
depois
feel,
da
so it
terceira
doesn't
ou
feel
quarta
too
cidade
monolithic.
deles, eles já vão ter um sistema bem
You wanna
definido
talk
assim,
about
de
the
criação de
spaceport,
cidades.
design here?
Sure.
Aham.
Thanks, Nick. Okay, let's talk about the spaceport. So,
Agora vamos falar sobre o porto espacial da cidade.
Chris laid down the challenge of wanting a spaceport embedded in a mountain, so we started exploring visually what that could feel like.
Que animal ficou essa estação,
And
meu.
then also we wanted the idea that
Legal,
it
cara.
would be almost overlooking the sky,
Enterrada na montanha, né?
Aham.
the water feature.
Pô. Totalmente diferente de...
As this was going to be
Hurston.
micro-location,
Sim.
you know, we wanted something where the architecture kind of reflected the brand. So as you can see here, it's pretty much a combination of sleek and, sleek architecture, but it's ingrained with technology, but it's also layered with the botanicals. And also we want to introduce the first kind
A
of
gente
hollow
praticamente não vê verde em Hearthstone. A gente tem cor escura pra caraca, né? Pouca iluminação. Olha como tá totalmente diferente, né, a pegada.
Sim. Como vai ser o gameplay na superfície do planeta, né?
Because whenever you embed something into the mountainside, you can't see it. And if you're coming from the other direction, design obviously had concerns about people being able to find it. And also, internally, we spend a lot of time just having a little mooch around the base of it. And it feels really good seeing ships coming and going as they fly overhead.
So we placed a spaceport opposite the main city, as you've seen in the demo, and that gives you that really good vista opportunities from both the outside of the spaceport and inside the atrium. And from the spaceport, you'll be able to take the train from the different sections of the city there's a few different transit loops, and also you can leave on foot or from a ground vehicle from the garages, which you can get to.
O cara pode usar tanto o sistema de trânsito quanto pegar um veículo e ir pela superfície do planeta até a cidade.
The vista and ships coming and going, and it's kind of a nice feature that all the other spaceports in our game have. You always want to see that traffic. And the vista view is on the critical path from the atrium down to transit, so you kind of walk past that window going down to transit, which is a nice.
Esses janelões assim pro cara poder apreciar a vista são muito legais, cara. Esses dias eu joguei com a galera, meu. É massa tu ver o cara pousando na estação.
E já é uma pegada diferente de Lorville, né?
Sim.
Lorville você tem poucos pontos de observação, né?
And this shot here shows a really good example of our high-tech building set on the interior side and how we've been developing the art style.
Okay. So for the first time for this landing zone, one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to do a deep dive into what we're calling the graphical standards for the corporation.
Agora vamos falar sobre a identidade visual da Microtech.
Real world, huge corporations go to a graphic design agency and ask them to kind of like define their brand. And we did exactly this. We worked with a very talented graphic designer, and what we did was we expanded down what the corporate identity of Microtech would be. So essentially, it's a document outlining the principles of how the company uses graphic design to communicate. So this is an example shot of wall designs and how they use iconography. So when we release the location, the idea is we'd kind of layer in these details, and the idea is that this would kind of just layer on that believability because there's a lot of traveling in our game, and we wanted to help improve that navigation experience.
A identidade visual da empresa está muito legal.
Previously we've used a lot of
crates, barrels,
trash, as Todd likes, cardboard boxes.
It's a video game after all.
Os objetos da estação.
Suite, right? So we needed things like seating, terminals, and the turtle kind of escalated in Area 18 a little bit. So I like the idea of each land zone almost has a little mascot. Yeah. So then we're like, let's develop like an extreme sport penguin. Yeah. Does anyone like that penguin? Who wants that penguin in game, right?
Tu tá vendo o pinguim, amor?
Não entendi a do pinguim.
Olha o pinguim ali no meio.
Sim,
decision made.
Okay, decision done. All right, okay. And then also here you can see. Fundamentally, the way in which we're going to address these high-tech locations is different. Rather than just like going for that high frequency feeling where it feels like it's very well lived in, we want to keep that aesthetic. So a lot of the props need to work in addition to the architecture. And when you're working on a modular game, it's quite tricky. Okay, let's talk about the domes.
Agora vamos dar uma falada sobre os domes da cidade.
Again, much like the cityscape, these domes
Teu áudio tá falhando, Almeida.
went through many iterations. You know,
Eu mexi aqui,
there's
mas
a lot of,
Ah,
you
beleza.
know, if you do
tem muito o que
Google,
fazer.
a Google search
Peraí.
for,
Não, acho que foi em relação mais à conexão mesmo do que acho que a...
Deixa eu olhar se eu tô com perda de pacote.
It's not necessarily to my tastes. So we
Nossa,
spent a
agora parece
bit of
ter
time
normalizado.
refining that design.
Ah,
And we also explored the
aqui não
idea
tem
of,
nada
like, how
não.
we wanna
Deve
get
ter sido
people
algum
in and
probleminha.
out of these domes,
Eu tava
how
com
we
um problema
wanted to
ontem na
connect together,
internet.
things like that.
Pode ser que volte.
Okay, so unfortunately we didn't see it on the flight path. For the longest time on the demo 1, we had a nice track over the domes, but essentially we put them in prime real estate on the front of the waterfront. And then we got a dedicated transit line leading directly into it.
Hi, welcome to the neighborhood.
So let's break down some of the key aspects. So the first area is called Commons, right? It's located in the smaller side of what our internal team lovingly refers to as the double bubble.
Double bubble.
So inside the Commons, there's a few things that you'd expect to see. So the narrative pass that we get is kind of described as like a kind of a douchey campus vibe. So
Cara, que
you know,
visual
we've got
legal.
a bit of a dedicated yoga spot there. So if you want to get some yoga on, it's right there.
Será que a gente vai ver NPC fazendo yoga?
Puta merda.
Also you can see some of the
Meu Deus.
principles
Só do
of
Star
our
Citizen mesmo, né?
aesthetic
Aham.
here. So clean
Lá do Star
lines,
Citizen.
beautiful and exotic plants.
Eles falaram que esses domos de vidro vai ser tipo a assinatura, né,
The next
do lugar, né, de
Sim.
Microtech, né?
The next area, my note has completely disappeared.
Será que os domes são a área de respawn?
Pelo visto sim, né? Ele falou que é uma área comum,
Sim.
talvez seja onde tem apartamento,
So the next area
né?
is called the plaza. So essentially, this is the larger part of the main dome, and this was described as the corporate business park. So this is where you know, it's the main hustle bustle of the location, and we wanted to kind of like convey the feeling of like this is where the factory line is, but we wanted to convey that you know, corporate business park vibe, but it's still located inside the dome. And then lastly, we got the promenade. So as you can see, it's kind of located across that sky bridge right there, and this will kind of give you that feeling of like going from the inside of one dome to another. So again, you know, building from lore, this space is kind of designed. This is where the kids kind of go at night to you know, take some substances.
Cara, olha que visual.
Isso aí é...
Yep.
Isso aí é onde os caras vão ir pra tomar algumas substâncias que nem diz o cara ali.
So I think it was Will came up to me a few times and were like, yeah, we need to kind of add some douchey elements. So
Sim, sim, é a área de diversão no caso, né?
You can thank Will for that. Okay, let's move on to
Frio do caralho lá fora, o cara não tem nada pra fazer.
Vai ser encher de
So,
substâncias, né?
for locations to put the habitation in New Babbage, it's pretty obvious that it should be in the center, in the Aspire ground.
Ah, eu achava que é ali que ia
It's the
ser
only
as
choice
habitações,
to
mas não é,
and
cara.
we get really nice commanding views from that building of the whole landing zone. So the corporation is called the Nest. It's the habitation.
Então, eles já vão ser lá naquele prédio gigante?
Desculpa, não entendi.
Os apartamentos já vão ser naquele prédio lá gigante?
Acho que vão, pelo que que tá dando pra entender, é.
Maneiro.
So there's a little shot of the balcony area, which we don't really want to spoil too much because the views out are really cool, and
Diz que eles não querem entregar muito do visual porque é muito legal.
O prédio mais alto, né? Porra, vai ser muito legal mesmo.
So going into
Poder
the
ver
hub
lá de
units,
cima.
these are the high-tech versions of what you've seen in the utilitarian ones for the players. So they have all
Olha ali,
the
cara,
same,
que massa o dormitório com a janelinha ali. Mas não, quando o cara tá, quando o player tá deitado, o cara não consegue olhar pro lado.
racks and kitchens and stuff, but in that high-tech style. One view we will show is the one from the hab pod, which we've wanted to get in for a long time, actual real views from your bed of the landing zone. So these aren't faked views. It's not a screen. These are the actual views you get. So each hub pod will have a slightly different view.
Isso aí é a visão real do game, né?
Cada apartamento vai ter uma visão diferente, né, da cidade. Caraca.
And it would be cool if you get one of your friends to park up a ship outside, waking you up, get out of bed.
Big headlights.
So we started the process of branding and the nest and getting a nice sleek design in with the hubs. Do you want to talk about the lighting?
Sure.
Oh, gameplayzinho, ó.
This is kind of like a bit of an internal exploration. Much in the same way with the spaceships, we wanted to start looking at light sequences. So, ways in which we can kind of enrich this experience in the hubs. So what we did was try to think about, when you get out of bed, in the same way, maybe at home, like lights just slowly start
Olha!
Que massa,
Olha as
cara.
luzes, cara.
Maybe even eventually, we can kind of like expose some of this to players, so you can define your own kind of like ambience that you want to do inside your hub. So here you can see it's still quite debug, but it kind of gives the idea of where we want to take things. Yeah.
Bah, tu pode desligar as luzes, ó.
Nossa, em Hurston o apartamento era todo bagunçado, né? Aí é tudo organizadinho. Olha, cara, ele desligando, porra,
Animal, né?
Okay, let's talk a little bit about transit. So right from the beginning, we knew we wanted some a design that was quite brave. So we kind of latched onto this tube design quite early.
Vou mostrar finalmente
For quite
o
a period of time,
Hyperloop.
it was kind of like a tube, so it was sealed. But then, as we expanded on developing the landing zone, for quite a few reasons, like we need to open up that tube. So for the first time, you're going to be able to have open transit tracks.
You'll be able to land on that track.
So yeah, so they kind of changed from being like a Hyperloop to a maglev.
Tá, que massa,
And
cara.
then, yeah, here you can see it kind of transitioning into production, and it's already feeling quite successful. And then also, it's the same way as what we was doing for the hubs, we was exploring ways in which we can get light sequences to aid, player navigation. And I really love the idea of, rather than going left or right or wondering which side the train's going to come, maybe like the light changes and then you kind of know. And it's also worth pointing out that this time we didn't have transit designed.
Placeholder trains going
So we were like, I think you guys have seen this video, right?
Taco,
Burrito gigante.
Like, right, okay, we don't necessarily have transit.
Eu já
but
tinha
we have
visto esse vídeo.
I
You
mean,
thought it was
the
gonna
trains
be
are going to be...
burrito,
Acho que quando o trem estiver chegando, acho que as luzes vão mudar.
Okay.
World's most advanced fast food.
Acho que ali do outro lado era um cachorro quente.
Era
né?
um cachorro
Ali, ó.
But you can kind of get the idea of how we want to advance our interiors through light animation. Okay. Okay, so
Bah, que
I'm not gonna
legal.
lie to you, designing new Babbage has been extremely hard. Our internal concept team is
Maneiro,
very, very
boa.
good. But I've been kind of stressing them out, been going through many design iterations, and the transit is no exception. So we went through a few different designs, and here you can kind of see the most advanced one we got. But ultimately, we wanted something that felt very aerodynamic, felt like it could cut through the air very easily. And then because we knew we had these exceptional views of the cityscape on the transit, we wanted to just open up that canopy so you can see as much of the cityscape going by. Cool.
Okay, let's talk about the garages.
Eles vão
these
falar
are
das
another
garagens
common
agora.
element that we've adapted for the high-tech style. So you'll be able to keep all size of ground vehicles in here, from the very small
Olha o urso ali.
Cara, conexão
to
com
the
Gar,
very
por
large,
favor.
like the ballista ground vehicle, to some more food-based vehicles, which we just threw in there. And so this is the surface entrance, so it's nestled just below the spaceport, and this is where you'll go from. You'll take an elevator down from the spaceport to your surface entrance. So this is like a essentially like a car park where every user owns their own space and garage to go from. So this is where you'll go from foot out into the landing zone and also take your ground vehicle.
Legal, cara. Legal.
Eu só queria que as garagens fossem conectadas aos hangares, sabe? Facilitar o trabalho.
Pelo que ele falou, não, né? O cara vai ter que caminhar
Não.
até lá, pegar um elevador.
É isso que é chato.
Ainda mais, cara, se tratando de Microtech, que a estação ela tá dentro da rocha, né? Então, tipo, a estação, o porto espacial, ela tá tipo, num nível mais acima do que do chão, né? Das garagens. Aqui eu até vejo relação, tá? De repente, isso aí se aplicaria mais pra Hurston, por exemplo.
Following further investigation, this kind of shows where we're at and seeing everything come together.
Certeza que o evento da CitizenCon do ano que vem vai ser Microtech.
Give you that feeling of integration. So I've got a couple of images of kind of before we were integrated and after, and you can see like how the build-up of snow is added, embedding those structures and rocks. The shaders having that layer of frost, which can be controlled, and that's what the BIM integration tech is currently working on. So that's integrated. Here's a pretty cool nighttime shot.
Ah, que massa, cara.
And after. And we still need to do a bit more work on this integration. For example, the transit tracks may not be covered in snow.
Caraca, cara.
That to like ice up and
Legal
the
demais.
train plow into that. So
será que numa futura versão vão ter planetas que, tipo, de tempos em tempos muda a estação?
These are the domes.
Pô, imagina isso.
Of that shot and how integrating it just makes
Sendo
it feel
Star
so
Citizen, eu
much
não
better.
duvido.
It's like night and day.
Tipo, junho é debaixo da neve e agosto é quente.
And then this is the whole city as well.
Pá, animal, cara.
So all of this in combination is working towards that initial goal and the 3.8 release of having a very open cityscape and for you guys to explore on foot, on ground vehicle and in your ships around the New Babbage landing zone.
Nice, cara, muito show.
Cool, thanks Nick. Internally we're really excited about New Babbage, so I think we're all going to be watching what you guys think of it. Okay, so this is actually a really nice segue to move on to the last part of our talk. We'll talk a little bit about Microtech. So, as we talked about, you know, this is the first planet which we approached fresh with V4.
Actually, without V4 we would not have been able to do it.
Eles estão falando que sem a versão 4 da tecnologia planetária não teria como construir isso daí.
Yeah.
So as the Lord describes, you know,
Assim, né,
described as
nossa.
a very, very cold planet. You know, there was a terraforming accident, but it was perfect for Microtech to move on to. And as we knew we'd have some new tech to play with this, we were super into the idea of exploring like biomes which aren't necessarily completely covered in snow, so warmer.
And as you might have remembered if you were in the previous talk, we now
Bah,
have
tá
this
vendo o gráfico ali, ó?
variety,
Entre
graph
quente,
that can work
frio
with.
e
So
seco e
instead
úmido.
of picking random biomes and sort of
Aí entra aquilo que eles estavam falando, né, dos parâmetros
Sim.
para definir os biomas.
What each of these regions would be. So we have cold, dry regions, we have warmer, dry regions, we have wetter regions, and the bread and butter, which is like the frozen mountains and frozen forests. And this also informs how our temperature is formed on the planet.
Yeah, and we've been
Bah, isso tudo pra Microtech. Eu achava que isso aqui era só um case test.
Years. So the fact that we're kind of delivering this now, you know, it's huge. Okay, let's start with breaking down some of these biomes. So let's start with biome 1. So right from the beginning, we knew we wanted these epic snowy
Que
kind of like
animal,
mountain
cara.
ranges. It was pretty much, for the longest time, this was pretty much like the core direction of what Microtech was. And then there's a few elements that you can kind of see in here where these large mountain ranges kind of go down into the valleys, and then that's where we'll start to see the pine trees being spawned.
So, in order to get these mountain ranges looking truly epic, we used both a selection of like mountain height maps as well as a global elevation map. So again, in the previous talk, we talked about a maximum up and down range of 1 kilometer. And if you want to have this epic mountain range, it has to go higher than 1 kilometer. So we needed a combination of both. And we did some exploring into mountain ranges on Earth, and like locally, the maximum elevation is usually, you can cover a lot of that detail with a 1 kilometer range. And it's usually across like the multiple kilometers, the 10, 20, 30, that you really need this large, slow increase in height. And with a combination of the global height map as well as these smaller mountain height maps that are distributed across, we managed to get these really epic looking mountainscapes.
Eles estão comentando como é que foram criadas, né, as montanhas do planeta, né? Parece não terem tipo alguma coisa muito monstruosa, terem algo mais distribuído, né? Com alturas de até 1 quilômetro mais ou menos.
Another cool feature that came in with V4, and Ali briefly touched on it, is the idea of bedrock. So bedrock is something that is a separate layer that has its own colors and textures that we can apply to it, and it's dynamically masked on slope angles. And I think this is one of those essential components that we needed to make Microtech look right, as we wanted these steep slopes to be like empty of snow, no snow, just the underlaying rock being visible.
Eles estão comentando sobre que algumas montanhas tinham que ter um asset específico para não ter a neve, né?
Just as an extra sneak peek, this is my monitor a day and a half ago. We have such amazing tools. This is me scrubbing the time of day.
Que
and
massa.
you're saying how important the shadows cascading over the terrain is right now. Like,
Olha essa iluminação.
this is literally my
Olha as
monitor.
sombras.
So you can kind of see a little bit how it's feeling right now. Nice.
Ah, muito animal.
É, tem que bater palma mesmo.
Quite interesting. When we released Hurston, we was all about the sunset, whereas actually right now it actually feels really good at other times of day as well. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Biome 2. So this kind of like is the transition from Biome 1. So as I said, we wanted these lower regions outside of the mountain ranges, and this was a chance for us to kind of like, you know, build up the botanical distribution. So we maybe wanted some areas that feel, you know, quite calm, quite peaceful, but then, you know, sometimes we might want areas which feel like they're kind of like half embedded under snow. And because the most of the palette for Microtech, or most of the palette for this biome, is completely monochromatic. So we're doing everything we can to, you know, create interest with silhouettes and shapes and little color accents from, you know, flowers.
Esse aí vai ser o segundo tipo de bioma do game, né? Do game que eu digo de Microtech, que acho que vai ser a área mais gelada ainda do planeta.
And, you know, we've seen this slide previously.
Pelo gráfico dá pra ver que vai ter pelo menos uns 6, né?
Sim.
Our biome asset packs?
Uns 6 biomas diferentes no mesmo planeta, né? Que é incrível.
Fora a mesclagem, né?
Sim.
Esse sistema novo, esse tipo de transição mais complexa, você vai ter algo mesmo também.
Very sparse to dense, and from dense to sparse over a large area. With V4, we finally can do that. As you can see in the image, you see the forest like stretching out, and there's no like specific end to a tile that just flows into the terrain naturally. So the object distribution being informed by terrain features, we could finally achieve those transitions, and I think we're quite happy with the results.
Yeah, we're still pushing. You know, that's a lot of trees, but we always want more.
And yeah, like Ian mentioned before, or I think Ian or Nick, when we're talking about the spaceport, it's sometimes really hard to understand and recognize scale in our game. And we on the art team, I think everybody has run into this situation as well. You're building some things like, I mean, you're building something that's actually way bigger than you expected, and it isn't until you start putting stuff together in the biomes and you actually start having these trees in, that you have a reference point, something that you understand as a human, like, okay, this is a tree, this is about the height, I can understand the scale of things now, so when we started scattering these trees around it really
Estavam comentando ali que é difícil o cara ter um senso de escala dos objetos dentro do game, até tu começar a popular, né, o ambiente com outras coisas, que eles só foram entender o tamanho de Neil Babbage do porto espacial, né, depois que eles colocaram as árvores ali e viram mais ou menos como é que ficava.
Realmente você só vai descobrir isso quando você botar, né, os assets.
Porque eles têm que ter pontos de referência, né? Então, tipo, tu bota uma estação numa pedra, beleza, parece que tá ok. Aí tu popula o resto do ambiente, tu vê, nossa, mas ficou gigante.
Porque tudo acaba sendo uma questão de referência, né? Você não coloca nada ao redor, você acaba perdendo a noção da escala, né, das coisas. E aí você vê uma imagem dessa, por exemplo, você vê que o prédio é estupidamente grande, né, do lado de uma árvore.
Those things that you recognize from a personal level, like I know how big a tree is, so that sense of scale is what is much needed with these epic structures, which you can't really tell until you've got those kind of reference points in.
No. Okay, so just want to share some assets that the organics team built. We have the snowy spruce trees, which is, like I said, the bread and butter.
Nossa, tá muito bonito essas árvores, cara.
Estão muito
bonitas.
bonitas.
Around 80% of the landscape is mountainous regions and trees in the valleys. So these guys are the most common ones. They're in snow. They have a little bit of a frosty layer, but they're not too heavily covered in snow. And if we go to the next one, we also wanted to have ones that were really like heavy snowfall, completely snowed under.
Porra, essa variação, cara, olha que legal, né?
You come across these guys in the landscape as well. Also, the weather on Microtech can be really, really harsh, and blizzards and snowstorms, all the strong winds. And describes
os galhos quebrados, você falou que bonito, realmente tá legal pra caralho.
Accident, basically, with everything. Terraforming accident. Yes.
Sim, foi problema na terraformação, ó.
In the assets as well. So we made sure to show visual cues of the type of weather you could probably expect.
Essa aí abre brecha para eles colocarem missões do tipo satélite, naves caídas, aí coloca esse ambiente na volta, vai ficar tipo muito imersivo.
Verdade.
Sort of make your way around quite easily. So with this, it's more interesting to navigate. It's also visually more interesting to explore what's on the ground. It just gives this extra layer of detail. One further.
Okay, let's move on to the next biome. So, as we said, we got a bit more of a physically based approach.
Sabe dizer qual vai ser o próximo quadro?
Provavelmente vai ser o quadro que fala o próximo bioma?
Não, o palco da Envil, qual vai ser o próximo, entendeu?
Vai ser Lore Makes Guide.
Tá.
Eles vão falar sobre como escrever uma lore, eu acho.
And it gives us an opportunity to inject color into the frame with things like flowers and things like that.
Nossa, esse bioma tá muito bonito.
So here we see one of those transitions, and I've made a little joke about this in the previous presentation, that this is what the transitions now look like. So no more tiles. So with the updated tech, we're seeing these beautiful transitions, and they're informed by and at the same time emphasizing the shapes of the terrain. So we're really happy with those results. And here are some examples.
Que legal.
I like the spring vibe that is going on. The frost
Caraca.
is gone, little flowers start popping up again.
Pra quem achava que Microtech ia ser só gelo, né?
Although these areas are quite calm and nice to have a little hike through, the snowy mountains are never far away. So we always want to remind the player that, it's still a cold planet. And once again, these transitions, we're super, super happy with how these flow into each other. So these are some of the assets that we did for the biome. Fairly small but simple packs, some nice colors, some nice flowers, and some remaining roots and trees that did not survive the initial frost. So just wanted to show some remnants of that.
Okay.
Ó, tem outro bioma.
Biomes. So,
Ó, tem uma área quente no planeta ainda.
so there's a kind of like an offset to these snow regions. I was really quite passionate about having areas of like quite intense color. So then we explored like these type of regions, you know.
É tundra, né, cara? Bem
reds,
bonito.
Oranges and things like that. And then also as part of the asset pack reuse, you know, maybe instead of these rocks being covered with snow, you know, we start to build up the lichen on there as well.
So
que
these
massa.
areas show actually what Microtech would look like if without all the snow and ice. And so we're seeing the same spruce actually is a conscious choice to have those return in a more unfrozen state, just to tie these areas together. And obviously, as you can see in the distance, to remind the player that these warmer regions are, there are not that many of them. So we wanted to make sure that there's always this epic mountains in the background, reminding the player that, yeah, they're never far away.
Yep.
Some of the assets that we did for the taiga region. So you see the red lichen, and the rocks and the ground cover, everything has a bit more warmer colors.
Eu só não entendi como é que na lore eles vão encaixar esse tipo de bioma dentro do planeta, se ele era para ser um planeta bem
In
frio.
order to emphasize these warmer colors, we added a few more tree types. Because
Não, então,
the
mas
spruce
ele
is
mesmo
already
falou, né?
evergreen,
Você
so
sempre vai ter lá no horizonte um lembrete que você tá num lugar bem gelado, né? Vai ter uma montanha com neve. Então, não vai deixar de ser frio, né? Não é porque é verde que é um bioma quente.
Sim, tipo, nem todos os lugares do planeta sofreram tão... Tem alguns lugares do planeta sofreram menos com a ação do frio do que outros.
Isso provavelmente vai ser mais na faixa equatorial, né, de Microtech. Deve ser o lugar menos gelado, né? Aí dá pra ter um pouco de verde.
Sim.
Okay. Next biome. We've talked about snow biomes, we've talked about quite botanical heavy, and we've talked about like an offset. For somewhere like this, I thought it'd be really quite interesting if we described areas that were very bleak, you know, very dark, very cold, and then maybe the idea is that these are located like maybe on the poles, so you know, the sun angle is always quite low. And then, you know, it was quite heavily inspired about, you know, you see these areas, even on Earth, where like the glacial melt is kind of happening, big chunks of ice are being left behind. And then also for like,
Que nem o próprio Nukem ali comentou, ó, nos Estados Unidos tem lugares onde tem nevascas fortíssimas e tem florestas. Na Rússia também.
Uhum.
And here it is in game. And what's really cool about it is because it is at the poles, the sun is over at a very low angle, and you could say it's on purpose, but actually it was a bit of a happy accident where these low sun angles played really nicely with the glossy obsidian that we were scattering.
Yeah.
So we've done boulder fields before, but I think this one really stands out. So these are some of the asset packs that we created for this biome, and the next thing that the organics team wants to look at after we're getting close to wrapping up Planet V4 is increasing the asset quality, and we're doing that with a new shader that's being developed with the graphics team. It's not completely
Eles vão
done yet,
aumentar ainda
but
mais a
here's
qualidade
a bit of
gráfica
a
dos
preview
biomas,
what
né?
you can expect of the quality of rocks and assets that will be visible.
Okay, last biome, number 6. So this was always our wish list, and again, this is what helped drive a little bit more of that shader development. You know, as we knew it was going to come down into the coastline, we wanted to get people like on the ice, walking on the ice. So, like I said, it was kind of driving a lot of that tech development.
Yeah, so to create the frozen ocean, we wanted to reuse some of the features from our existing ocean and expand on making on that basically. So we wanted the surface to be solid, We needed to add some additional features to help sell this broken look, both when flying over it, so at this further distance, as well as when you're right on top of it. And it doesn't really actually show, but when you're walking on it and you look down, you actually see the multiple layers of cracks in the ice. Refraction going on, so it's quite a cool
que massa, cara.
to walk
Estão
over
falando
this.
sobre a tecnologia dos lagos congelados, né? Que tu vai poder caminhar por cima dele e ver as rachaduras no gelo.
Nossa.
Várias e várias
Mas eu
camadas.
realmente gostaria que, ao invés de tivesse congelado, tivesse em estado líquido, né, cara?
Sim.
Mas quem sabe no futuro, né?
Imagina o cara pousar uma nave ali e quebrar o gelo.
Someone mentioned the other day that iceberg looks a little bit like the Aspire Grand Tower. So maybe that's like the
It's your challenge
There
to
was,
fly through that.
there was the extreme sports penguin being artistic.
right.
Okay.
He was inspired.
So as always, you know, it's always a massive team effort. So this is the art team and lighting team that you can see. So great job to everyone. I think you guys are killing it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cara, apresentação legal, meu.
It's all those
Gostei.
people on those teams
Uh-huh.
that make art